Hello, everyone, and I'm back to recap the Vikings 31-9 loss to the Detroit Lions, and they lose out on the number one seed, and that makes them not the NFC North champions as the Lions hold it down, take care of business at home. This game was crazy anticipated by everybody, including myself. I was so excited as a Vikings fan, thinking that they would finally show up to the big game and put their stamp on this and lock in the number one seed and get the bye week and all that, but that did not happen. The Detroit Lions, frankly, outclassed them. They outcoached them, out-executed them. They just were so much better than the Vikings in quite basically every single asset of the game. From the get-go, it kind of started off how people did not expect it to. The offenses didn't start off hot like everyone thought. Everyone thought it was going to be a shootout. But it was not. The Vikings defense actually came to play. They're the only real phase of football that showed up for the Vikings. The defense really brought it. They forced 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and they had a whole bunch of big-time plays. Van Ginkel had a big hit on Jahmyr Gibbs, and he almost had a pick six later in the game. But at that point, it just seemed like the Lions offense had figured out the Vikings defense. It seemed like they figured out exactly how to play them. Every time there was a third down or even on the fourth down plays, the Lions almost kind of knew that pressure was coming. And so they, set up quick plays, quick pass plays to beat that blitz. And, Jared Goff was on it on those important downs. Whereas the Vikings offense, on the other hand, they didn't show up really. They couldn't really handle the Lions pressure. All their routes would seem to be like long routes that needed time to develop, and Sam Darnold didn't have time in the pocket to sit there and let those develop. So a lot of times he held the ball. He did his whole turn around and scramble back there, and it led to sacks and just bad plays overall. He missed guys that were open. They had a whole bunch of red zone opportunities, and they came out with 2 field goals and 2 turnovers on downs in the first half out of 4 red zone turnovers. So, 4 red zone possessions. So, the offense really let this team down. Special teams was kind of a disaster as well. Will Reichard missed like a 53-yarder. But I think more importantly than that, this game seemed like it was still in play. It was 7-6 Lions. The Vikings had another golden opportunity to score in the red zone at the end of the half, and they couldn't score a touchdown, but at least they were able to, milk some clock, hold the ball long enough to what looked like not give the Lions enough time to drive down the field before the half, and they made their field goal. So it was 7-6 with 20 seconds left in the half. So at this point, you just kick it off and just try to hold the Lions. They only had 1 timeout left, but Will Reichard kicked the ball out of bounds. So that gave the Lions great field position. They started off at their own 40-yard line. So really now all they needed was 20 yards. And they had a timeout in their pocket. So that whole possession that the Vikings kind of squandered and only ended up with a field goal was for nothing, because then the Lions picked up the 20-some yards and kicked the field goal and took the 10-6 lead into halftime. So that was a bummer. And then in the second half, they just got, in my opinion, more than outplayed and outclassed and all that. They got outcoached. It really seemed like the Vikings were trying to play a Detroit Lions style type of game. And that's not the Vikings. I don't know what KOC was doing really in the beginning. Again, the halftime score was 10-6. It should have even been 7-6. So your defense was holding up. It never seemed in the first half like this game was getting out of hand. And, he was ultra aggressive. He went for it twice on 4th and goal, where it just seemed like a smart thing to do was take the points. At that point, kick the field goal. And, if those field goals would have been made, you would have had 12 points. So, and you would have been right there, if not with the lead at that point. So it was just a weird game, the way it was coached by the Vikings. I love KOC, but it really did seem like he was trying to play Dan Campbell's type of game. And Dan Campbell is an awesome coach because he's a motivator and he's like a dog and he's like a player's coach. But analytically, sometimes what he does makes no sense at all. He's just too aggressive sometimes, which sometimes that's what makes me wonder if the Lions can actually win a Super Bowl, because I just feel like he's going to be too aggressive at a point in the game where he doesn't need to be, and it might cost the Lions. But it hasn't up to this point really, but we shall see how it all plays out. But, earlier in the year, the game against Buffalo, he kicked that onside kick way too early. So there's things like that he does, but that's his style, and he's still a great coach. But that's his flaw. He's too aggressive sometimes. But that's not KOC's flaw. And so I don't know why he did that. And then the time where I thought you don't take the points, because now it started to feel like the game was getting out of hand. And I thought they should have gone for it in the second half. They had like a 4th and 4 from the 40-yard line or something like that. And they trotted out Will Reichard, who missed the field goal. And that gave the Lions great field position for them to go right down and score another touchdown. And that pretty much sealed the game at that point. So disappointing day for the Vikings. Great day for the Lions. Good for them. Congratulations to them. The NFC North champs. They get a much-needed bye week to get even healthier. This team could be dangerous. I'm still thinking that Philadelphia is the team to beat in the NFC. I've been saying this for a while. I think it's them and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's my opinion. But the Lions did what they had to do. Now, if they do have to play Philadelphia, they get to play them at home. And, the road to the Super Bowl is going to run through Detroit. So hopefully for the Vikings' sake, they can take care of their playoff game and then maybe probably have to play Detroit again. And even though it's unlikely that a team, or it's really difficult that a team beats another team 3 times in the same season, I would pick the Lions again to beat them, because it just seems like they figured them out. And it seemed like the Vikings didn't really play to their identity. So we shall see, but tough matchup for the Vikings now to take on the Rams, a game that they've already played this season and lost. And they didn't really look particularly good then either. The offense had started off hot at that game, and then they kind of got figured out as well. So we shall see what happens there and how it all plays out. But that's the recap. Vikings really dropped the ball on this one, and we'll see how they bounce back and how they recover. And Detroit gets to get healthy and wait for their opponent for the next round of the playoffs.